I'll leave it up to you.
Well, hi everybody. Is it 6 o'clock? It's 5:58. We've got a few more minutes.
How do I pull this up so I can see the chat? Where do I go?
Let's see.
Live.
Yeah, right there.
Hey, it's working.
Hey, it's working.
Okay, as well.
Awesome. You have to turn your volume down.
I did.
Oh, and we have a kitty cat jumping on the table.
No. Get in. Scooch.
We're not good at this enough to know how to do thumbnails and intro music. I am not a producer. Well, I like this song, and I hope I don't get a copyright strike, but it's the karaoke version, so hopefully we're doing fine. Yeah, ready to start. Welcome. Anybody there? Nope.
A little bit of a delay.
Yeah, a bit of a delay. All right. Yep, we got another few minutes. I'm going to take my last sip.
Messages.
So this is all being recorded, honey. This will all, when people play it back.
So how do you do the live chat?
Right there.
All right, good. I just give it a little bit.
Aw. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christy's Corner, where we talk about culture, Christianity, common sense, and conservatism, but not necessarily in that order. I am so glad you could make it tonight. I have a very special guest with me, Troy Smith, my husband. How you doing, Troy?
I'm peachy, sunshine. How are you doing?
See, where's my clipboard? There it is. Hey, excuse me a minute.
Yeah, I may leave you here for a second so I can go take some coffee.
Are you still getting off? There's stuff going around right now. It's pretty bad out there.
You got the funk.
You got the funk?
Jason had the funk.
Which Jason?
Jason.
Jason from Toxic Masculinity. Let me just plug their show again, if I may. They drop on Mondays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. You know what, guys? I just got hit with the biggest whack of stage fright. Just because I know we're live.
So you're only living
Oh, you can do whatever you want. But once you throw it out there, it goes away.
Talk for a second,
right.
Introduce, and I'll come back.
All right. All right, guys. So I don't have any idea if we have anybody watching or not. But Troy and I were talking last night about the show and what we were going to be discussing. And one of the things he said was, do you remember when Khrushchev did that deal with the UN? And I said, yeah, I remember very well. He took his shoe off, slammed it on the table, and as he was slamming it, angrily said, "We will bury you without ever firing a shot." And so Troy and I were talking about it, Troy and I were talking about what that. I lost you, baby. I lost you. So we were talking about Khrushchev and what that meant with him slamming his shoe on the table at the UN and saying that he will bury us without ever firing a shot. And that got me thinking about, is he succeeding? Has Khrushchev's message, has communism succeeded in burying America without ever firing a shot?
I don't think we're buried yet. But if you read some of the things that he wrote, and I'm going to be going back and forth, and I'm not super technology guy, so bear with me.
Neither one of us are. But we're doing this show because we want to make a difference. My intro videos talked about I want to educate. I love to teach and I want to educate, but I want to chat. I want to talk about this stuff because I know we come up with ideas. And if we just keep at it and work hard enough, I guarantee you we can fix this. We can, like I said in the other thing, we can turn this ship around.
Okay.
What you got?
You want this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is on Snopes. It was posted by David Emery back in 2018. And, you know, I was just thinking about everything that we're seeing nowadays. And it took me back to what Khrushchev said this to Kennedy. Did you already do that deal where you were?
Yeah, he slammed his shoe. And not only did he slam his shoe on the table at the UN, but all the intellectuals at the time thought he was rude and crude and he was a farm boy. And what the heck did he know?
Yeah, so and I'm gonna just quote right off of this here. It says the Soviet leader allegedly boasted that Americans would suddenly waken to find they lived under communism. And if you go down,
I wrote the quote down.
This is David Emery quoting. And it says Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev said, and for a lot of this comes up because, like, just talking to my niece and nephew, they don't even remember 9/11. You know?
Well, my youngest niece was 8 years old, and what she does remember is she doesn't want to go up in buildings to this day. She doesn't like going up in skyscrapers. And I couldn't figure out why. And she finally said, "Hello, Aunt Christy, 9/11." Okay. I'm like, oh my gosh.
So I'm going to lead with this here, and maybe I'm biased, but I don't think so.
Oh, it's okay.
Because you weren't the first chick I took out. So,
I think you had a wife before me too.
What was it, 15 or something like that?
Yeah, we can tell that story so much.
Anyway, we got married in '96, and so as time's gone on, I'm like, this woman is a friggin' plethora of information. It's almost annoying because she's like, "Oh, honey, well, did you know?" And then I have to answer it and say, "No, honey, I didn't know. Would you please tell me?" And then she does. So,
but it's usually in some context of something has happened on the news or something's going on.
Right.
And I happen to be a history buff, and
I was going to throw that in. So
I'll be quiet.
I'm just a guest.
He's talking about me.
But she's going to have to tone me down a little bit because.
No, go ahead. Finish that thought about the plethora of knowledge.
Oh yes, you're so intelligent.
Intelligent.
Okay. So all I'm saying is that from a history or Western civilization, from a Christianity standpoint, I can ask her a question like, "Where's the deal with the tokens or the talons in the Bible?" And she's like, "Oh, well, that's right here." And here. So a lot of when she's talking about the things she's going to cover, we're both Christians, so. And I'll probably be talking about it more than maybe more than you would like, maybe not. But anyway, so but we were watching what's been happening, particularly since the pandemic. And
haven't we all? Hasn't everybody? You know, they talk about people being black. May I interrupt?
Yeah.
You got that thought? They talk about people being black pilled. Jason likes to say he's black pilled. And I don't know if I plugged that well. Toxic Masculinity on YouTube. Mr. Reagan. The one that has shot to meteoric heights from his Kamala video.
He was just on the news.
Yeah, we just heard him tonight on the 5. They mentioned, well, someone did a Kamala video that was AI generated or whatever. And they were talking about Mr. Reagan.
Chris, they said someone.
Well, we were actually listening to that show, not watching it. But anyway, I lost my train of thought.
So we're going to do that a lot.
Yeah, we are going to do that.
So anyway, I'll just go ahead and all my whole point is that I have learned a ton of stuff from this woman, and sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes I'm like, please watch the game. But it's really been a real blessing in my life. And so you were talking about your family, your parents being teachers or
Yeah, I came from a family of educators in military. And my grandmother and I shared the same room from the time I was born pretty much until I was 13 years old. And she was a professor of history at the University of Kentucky in Lexington, and knew the Bible. I don't know if she ever met Mr. Halley, and it's possible she did, but there's a book called Halley's Bible Handbook, and it is an amazing commentary that goes with the Bible and helps you study it. And she taught it to me from little bitty on. I was reading Halley's Bible Handbook with her. We would read the Bible and go to the handbook and look up the context, what was happening culturally at that particular moment, why the Bible was talking about whatever it was teaching.
Right.
And it put everything into huge perspective for me. But it got even better when I learned about the Nephilim. We'll talk about that on another video. Had to throw that in there.
So anyway,
but back to Khrushchev.
Back to what we're talking
Back
about.
to Khrushchev.
So this is, and I don't know if this is safe or not, but this is pretty much what's been happening. I've got it here.
Okay.
So I will read it.
You just go ahead.
Oh. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev said, "We cannot expect the Americans to jump," now this during the Cold War, "from capitalism to communism, but we can assist their elected leaders in giving Americans small doses of socialism until they suddenly awake to find they have communism." And so
small doses of socialism. We can assist their leaders by helping them give the public small doses of socialism until one day they awaken to find they're living in a communist country, a dictatorship.
Oh, and before, guys, y'all are going to hear my voice quiver. I've been a diabetic for 50 years. So I have tremors real bad, and it affects my voice.
It's called extreme tremors.
I'm not going to say I'm never scared of Christy, but I'm not scared of her right now. I don't think she needs you need a guest. So she needs a guest. So anyway,
I just want to try this live chat because what I really want is for you guys to show up, get in the chat, start asking me questions. Let me know what's going on. What do you want to talk about? We threw this Khrushchev one out because Troy mentioned, do you remember when Khrushchev did that? So we started looking at socialism.
Yeah, basically.
Boy, is that
we were trying to find one that actually worked. We haven't come across one yet. And what it usually means.
And what do you mean by that? There has not been one society yet where socialism was tried and it was successful. The lie that Sweden was a successful socialist country is a complete lie. I don't have the facts on that, but it's an interesting.
You should have
I should have had the facts on that, but we're just going to chat tonight.
Well, we were kind of talking all over the place on this, but and you were talking about education, and I remember, I was in college mid '80s, and I went to it was a sociology class, and I remember sitting there and thinking, I don't agree with what this person is telling me.
Instinctually.
Yeah, it maybe, call it like I'm a Christian and they were preaching evolution, so
something to that effect.
Something to that effect where it was completely contrary
to your beliefs.
To what I believed.
And this was a sociology class.
Yeah, and I thought, wow, I've got to answer her questions the way she wants them, or I'm not going to graduate from college. I have to pass that class. So this was what, 40 years ago? So yeah, you can jump in.
No, I was just going to throw in the joke about everybody knows what a Bachelor of Science is. It's BS. And a master's is more the same. And a PhD is pilot on heavy and deep. Yeah. Silly joke. Anyway, that's my mom's favorite joke.
we were talking about back then.
I don't know what BS is.
That was the 80s. In the 80s, we got a real serious dose of me. All you got to do is look back at Remember the 80s or whatever shows those are. And, they trained us to be very good consumers and taxpayers.
That's such a great point.
And so, it's kind of like, I think maybe we just really let down the generations behind us. But at this point, You know, my little name tag says Troy Bare-Fisted because the gloves have got to come off. We cannot just sit back and be the silent majority anymore.
You know, we were talking about that on the porch the other day too, about how in the 80s that Reagan won in such a landslide, the second election in 84, 48 states. He won in 48 states, which had never happened in the entire history of the United States. And everyone was floored by it. And they all attributed a lot.
I think that was my first election.
It would have been. And the polls did not show that Reagan was winning. So they were kind of shocked that he didn't just win, but won 48 states. That's the second time around. The first time around, you know what? Yeah, check me on that. Please, somebody in the chat, let me know if it was the first election or the second election that he won all 48 states. But I do know that the point was the polls were not showing that. They were not reflecting that Reagan was going to win.
All 48 states.
I might have.
Okay.
Oops, I think we have 50. They want 52. What are we going to do about that?
She's not exactly mathematically.
A little challenge.
I mean, she's got a great point, but it's not.
Anyway, that the polls were not showing that he was going to win, and he wins by this landslide. And they attributed it, the media. I mean, in those days, it was Ted Koppel. You remember that? Nightline?
Mm-hmm.
The propaganda that these people have been showing us all of these years, teaching us, brainwashing us. That's the word I'm looking for.
So
wait, let me finish my point.
Yeah.
Almost there. Can you hang on to that? What they were saying was that it was the silent majority that caused him to win. So the polls didn't reflect him winning because we were silent. We were voting for Reagan and not telling anyone. And now a lot of people say the same thing's happening with Trump. And whether or not it happened in 2020, we're not going to get into that. I don't want to YouTube strike right off the bat. I just don't even want to talk about it. But to this day, I mean, he's running again. So far, he's running again. And do we have that same effect going on where people are going to vote for him, but they're not going to tell anyone that they did? They will say, oh, no, he's crazy. I'm not going to do it.
Well,
he's a convict. I'm not going to do it. And then they go into the voting booth by themselves. And
I hope so, because that's a 2-vote swing. And I'll just say this, because I don't know what I can say on this channel or not, to be honest.
Well, we don't want YouTube strikes right off the bat. We just started.
Yeah. So we're learning, but never in my lifetime have I seen them right when you think, okay, this person's gonna win. It's pretty, because you're watching it as the night goes on and on and on, and you're I remember.
Oh, are you talking about the election 2020?
I'll tell you what, in 2016 you were asleep, and I remember
I couldn't stay awake another minute.
Going yes, because I knew he had gotten enough votes.
No, 2016 I was awake. 2020 is when I went to sleep.
Well, 2020, all of a sudden, never in my life have I seen him go, oh, okay, well, we're going to take a break from the election coverage. Now we'll get back with you in the morning. And I'm like, what is happening here? So
I had a very early appointment the next morning, and I had to go to bed, and I was exhausted, and I was like, oh, he's going to win. He's going to win. And I go to bed and wake up, and Troy's telling me, well, I woke up before
the whole
you.
world witnessed it, so it's nothing new. But the whole point being the socialist thing that we're talking about, everything that we've kind of watched to build up to this, and the things that Christy knew already. It's not about everybody being taken care of. I mean, what do you want? Pick a society, whether it's, I don't know if I can say this, Jim Jones, David Koresh, any of these socialist approaches to doing things always has people at the top. There's always people at the top. And it appears to be that it's the people at the top and their way of wanting to control everyone that is really what socialism is about. It's not about taking care of the small guy.
Socialism is for the socialists, not the people. Andrew, not Andrew Breitbart, my guy. Oh, goodness gracious. Wilkow. Wilkow majority. Andrew Wilkow.
And
Wilkow. Spell it right. Wilkow majority. I listen to him just about every day, and he repeats that often. He also repeats a lot from Bastiat, which Frederick Bastiat. I just got that book not too long ago. I'm in the middle of reading it. Strongly suggest anyone that cares about what's going on right now and how to argue against socialism. That's a really gosh, and it's only like 70 pages long. It's really short.
And what he's talking about is a creeping social, so they hitch. Nowadays, they're kind of in your face and laughing at you when they do it.
Yeah, so Khrushchev said, we'll bury you without ever firing a shot. He also, I'm going to reread that quote. We cannot expect the Americans to jump from capitalism to communism, but we can assist their elected leaders in giving Americans small doses of socialism until they suddenly awaken to find themselves living in a communist society.
Yeah.
And I think that's what your point is.
That would be fundamentally changing America.
Fundamentally transforming America from a representative democracy to a socialist, what would you call it? Socialist state. Totalitarianism, autocratic. I guess autocratic. Having an autocrat tends to precede totalitarianism. First, you have the oligarchy, and then the autocrats. They're either one, vice versa, and then you end up with absolute power corrupts absolutely. And
what were their tenets? One was absolutely education. One was lack of morals. One was taking God out. What did your mom?
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you brought that up. So my mom taught school for 30 years. And she was born in 1924. My parents were older than my friends, like by 10 years. She was born in 24. So she was teaching in the classroom, and she was an elementary school teacher. She was in there teaching when they took the 10 Commandments off the wall of the school classrooms. And she would say, and I don't know if she came up with this or got it from someone else, but she used to tell me often, when they took the 10 Commandments off the wall from the classroom, I had to continue to teach my children they could not steal, but I could no longer teach them why. So they took hell out of the equation. So if there's no ultimate consequence for your behavior, you're going to do whatever the heck you want.
You know it's going to end up here, but
well, it's my favorite topic. We're trying to stay on Khrushchev, but religion's our favorite topic. Well, not religion, relationship with God. But anyway,
I completely feel like, and it's my belief system, so obviously I think I'm right, but that we're in a spiritual battle.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. And along that, continuing with my mom about the 10 Commandments coming off the wall around the same time, they took prayer out of the school, and I'm old enough to remember saying the Pledge of Allegiance. That was through my whole elementary school. But we also, I think by the time I was in first or second grade, they had stopped praying. I think in first grade we prayed over the principal said a prayer over the intercom. But by second grade, it was a moment of silence to use however you wished. And by third or fourth grade, it maybe by fifth grade, whatever it was gone. No more moments of silence. We still said the Pledge of Allegiance, but no more prayer. And it's real funny, isn't it? So socialism, communism, let's talk about Karl Marx and Engels. Fox Nation has, I plugged Fox Nation a while back, I think, on one of the videos. But no matter how you feel about Fox News and what has happened since Roger Ailes died and the Me Too movement and all of that stuff, I hear you and I agree. I watch hardly any news whatsoever. I'm just trying to keep up with current events. But Fox Nation is not their news division, but it's documentaries. It's really well done. And Brett Baer did one on the unauthorized history of socialism. I strongly suggest getting a trial membership to Fox Nation and watch that. It is so informative.
Yeah, and you can bail if you want, but that I think that's what it's why you're doing what you're doing now. Is if we don't stop being the silent majority and don't start
I'm glad you brought that
informing people of what they may not see because it's this creeping plan that they have, then it's going to be over. And I think we're honestly, I'll tell you what my point was my thought was after the last election, we will never have another Republican president. That was my thought at the time, was that it won't happen anymore because these guys got.
Well, we're not going to talk about that.
That was just. I'm just saying.
That was your thought, your opinion. I understand. And we don't know if that's
So
going to happen.
all I'm saying is that let's be aware of how they are indoctrinating people. I know, I heard a guy on, and this is just a witness to a TV show it was a guy that used to be in the Antifa group. And all he said was, we have the people come in, they're new, they're freshmen, and we ask them if they want to make a difference in the world.
So this was an Antifa, a member of Antifa who was
I
talking
think he was
about.
an ex.
Okay, ex-member of Antifa. Okay, and talking about how they recruited young people into.
Yeah, and I mean the kids are like, yeah, absolutely,
and
then they get them on their agenda.
What are we at 20? We are hormones. I mean, come on, we're hormones and adrenaline. With no brain.
Wow.
Nope. Well, we might have our brains, but we have very little life experience. Between 20 and 25, we are full of vim and vigor, and they used to say piss and vinegar. Vim and vigor.
Yeah,
and
I'm definitely different than I was then.
And
I look back and I look at how naive I was.
And I remember wanting to make a difference back then. I remember
Me.
For me, I was very already political.
No,
very
well,
well. I was raised with my grandmother who was teaching me all about history and Bible prophecy. And I was very interested in Bible prophecy. And if you're going to be interested in Bible prophecy, then you're pretty interested in current events. So
isn't that pretty much where we're at this point?
Absolutely.
If you decide you want to go for, Ross Perot, if you decide that you want a different, and it would go for either side.
I wanted to bring back to the silent majority what you said about, I was talking about the polls were not reflecting that Reagan was going to win, and they said it was the silent majority that pushed him over the top and got him all those votes. And one of the things we were talking about, votes. One of the things we were talking about is the silent majority may still exist, but it might not be the majority anymore. It seems to be shrinking. And one of the reasons it may be shrinking is because we've been so silent. and that's bringing it back to the why we're doing this. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought it was such a great point that he had made about the silent majority. May not be the majority because it's been too silent. So
you're making me think of, because I truly believe that this is a spiritual battle. Yeah. And I'm not saying that. I'm not picking a side because I have friends that are Democrats that are Christians. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is,
I have friends that are Democrats, but none of them are Christian.
Well,
Sorry, it's true. The two Democrat friends I have that I know for sure are liberals are kind of anti. One of them is believes in the great energy, and the other one just believes in good. But go ahead. So you have some liberal friends that are Christians. Go ahead.
Well, and I just think that as we get older, we have life experiences, and this is just the way it's worked for me. You end up in niches, or you can choose where you tend to give your time. And for me, it's about people don't have any clue, even I don't, or whomever, how much God really loves us. Each and every individual, and I've had these talks with, white, black, Hispanic, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. But from whatever you come from. So you see all the time people talking about stories where, well, we're gonna open, maybe they're in a really, really rough part of town. We're gonna open a civic center and we're gonna do boxing and we're gonna play basketball and we're gonna run sports or do whatever it is that they gotta do. So people who maybe they went to prison, maybe they ended up strung out on drugs, maybe they almost went to prison, whatever the case may be, but there's a spot for everyone. It just seems to me that we have got to start getting to the one-on-one because these guys are pitting us against each other. And that's not what the Bible talks about.
Well, actually it does.
Well, it does. It does. But if you get caught up in the rhetoric and the
distraction,
the pravda, whatever you want to call
it. Pravda is truth.
Pravda is truth.
Pravda means truth in Russian. And that was the joke about the media, the SNL media.
I gotta lose this.
The SNL did a skit. SNL did a skit with the so in the 80s, the kids don't know these stories. They don't understand.
That's why.
But let me do the plane wreck. So the point was in the news was so controlled by the government in Russia during the 80s that there would be a plane crash, film of a plane crash happening behind the reporter, and the reporter would be saying there was no plane crash today, none whatsoever. And here's the video of the plane crash going on. We've been saying, does this remind you of Pravda or what?
Yes,
that was the name
most
of the
protesters are very peaceful.
Yeah, the protest is mostly peaceful with the fire raging and the buildings, the cars turned over, the statues knocked down, vandalized, wrong word. Buildings burning, but it's mostly peaceful.
Right.
So Pravda means truth. Pravda was the name of the state media, the state-run media in Russia. It was called Pravda, truth. And it was a complete propaganda machine. And we here in America used to make fun of it. Well, guess what, folks? Guess what? Yeah. Our media
seems
is
to be
Pravda.
Working pretty well right now.
Our media has turned into Pravda. And everyone is talking about it. I think you mentioned the pandemic. I started to talk about, and I got a little off track when you left the room. I lost my train of thought. But the pandemic, they talk about people being black.
That just felt wrong. The whole thing felt wrong.
Would you remember The Matrix when we watched The Matrix together? You and I watched it together. I don't know if we saw it in the movie theaters or if we waited until it came out on DVD, but we watched it together.
Now that you mentioned it, with the blue and the red pill, the red pill, and the never mind.
It's exactly what I'm talking about.
I know. I'm just saying blue and red is relation to
Democrats and Republicans?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I didn't say, maybe I did say it.
It's very interesting. But they talk about being black pilled nowadays. And I didn't know what that meant, but I have a feeling it means you're beyond the red pill, that you just don't buy any of it. It's all a lie. And that we are living in the Matrix, or perhaps a simulation, whatever.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that people who ate the red pill have not been involved. This is, to me, this is a power-based situation. It just seems to me like the man who calls himself president right now can't possibly be running anything. Well, maybe the border.
Yeah.
But it's, literally everything's just a free for all. And at this point, they're not creeping it anymore. You're getting bee slapped with it.
So that brings us back to the question. Is Khrushchev's statement that he will bury us without firing a shot coming true?
If we continue to go, it's not over yet.
We're closer than we've ever been, in my opinion.
Well, who would have had the resources to put up with what Donald Trump has put up with? So now we have now we have
kidding.
Now we have JD Vance, but it's almost like because the left side keeps doing things, and we just watched Kash Patel's
Documentary.
Yeah, his documentary.
Government Gangsters.
Yeah, which was a lot of what we were pretty aware of.
We suggest it, but it's.
But if you're not familiar with it, please.
Yeah,
watch
if you're not familiar with what happened with how they came after Trump and the gangsters involved, the government employees, the bureaucracy that has so overtaken our entire system, definitely watch that.
But somebody's making these decisions.
Well, bureaucracy is another big part of it. And I wanted to mention, we didn't talk about this, Troy, but I wanted to mention 1984 and the Supreme Court's decision.
I thought you meant 1984.
I did mean 1984.
Oh, okay.
And it's a double meaning because, and we're getting close to time. So I was going to cut it off at a half hour, but if you want to go to 6:45.
You're recording the thing, anyhow, we'll figure it out.
All right. So 1984 is when the Chevron decision came down from the Supreme Court, which allowed bureaucrats, it allowed inspectors to charge the company that it was inspecting for that inspection. So in other words, let's use the environmentalist, for example. The environmentalist, the EPA inspector would come out and inspect the fisherman's boat to see if it was compliant with the EPA regulations. And this ruling, the Chevron decision, allowed the EPA to charge the fishermen for the inspection that the EPA said it needed.
So it's like paying for it's like you paying for the guy that's taking you to court to prosecute.
Exactly like that.
Okay.
Exactly like that. And it came down in 1984. And I just think it's phenomenally ironic that the book 1984, I mean, I remember I had read it before 1984 rolled around. I had read it. I'd read Brave New World. And I remember thinking, okay, here we are. It's 1984. Is Wilson going to do anything? And we have a cat. We have a kitty cat. She would like to be part of the show.
Very needy.
This is Annie Bell. Yep. Y'all don't give me a hard time about how I'm holding her. She does not care how you hold her.
She lived on the golf course.
Yes, she loves to be inside.
And she's
needy. All right, enough of that. Oh, hello.
Yeah, so I was thinking about something we were just talking about.
Well, and now the decision came down. They overturned it. They overturned the Chevron decision just 2-3 weeks ago. And what happens right behind that? Biden wants to impose term limits on the Supreme Court because they didn't like the decision.
Yeah, that's a hoot, isn't it?
Isn't it? And so
how long has he been doing this? Like what?
Well, we know it's
50 years or whatever. And all of a sudden, I mean, he's not even making the calls anyhow. Somebody's just telling him to say that.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Which is another one of those things that's like slapping you in the face. Like, really? And we're supposed to go, okay, we get.
Oh, I didn't see that.
We get a conservative Supreme Court for the first time in how long?
It's not even really conservative. I mean,
I know,
call
but
it a
I'm just saying.
We thought John Roberts was conservative, and he ruled in favor of Obama's health care, which was a tax.
Well, he wasn't, and then he disappeared, and a whole night went by, and then all of a sudden, they had enough votes to get it passed.
Oh, remember how he looked that next day? He looked like he'd been up all night long crying. It was really odd. I'll never forget that. Anyway, the point of the Supreme Court is to have no politics whatsoever. They are supposed to have the security of being there for life, so that all they are doing is ruling on the laws that Congress pass and pass laws that may have been overlooked, that have harmed people. The Supreme Court is there to interpret the law of the land, period. They are not there to make law. They are not there to enforce law. They are not there. If you put in term limits on the Supreme Court, I love what someone said earlier today.
There's a behavior thing on that. Something about, there's like some kind of, you have to behave.
Oh, an ethical standard.
Yeah.
They want to put in an ethical standard.
Who puts in the ethical standard? Seriously, this government?
You know what? We're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank y'all for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I know there weren't that many people here live tonight, but I'm hoping folks will see it after. I'm hoping it recorded. It may not have recorded anything at all. Well, this whole show may have been just you and I messing up on our first live stream.
So can I throw a couple of plugs in on the guest here?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the Bible talks about we do not fight against flesh and blood, but against
powers,
principalities of this world.
This present. Oh, she will.
And this present darkness. And
she's mad.
Oh, Christy's more of a reader. I'm not. I just don't choose to. I do math in my head real good. So, but I did read this book, and there's a couple of follow-up books, but the main book that really was interesting to me was by Frank Peretti, and it was called This Present Darkness. And it's basically
Ephesians 6.
What's happening on earth and what's happening in the spiritual realm at the time.
It is very much like C.S. Lewis, the Screwtape Letters, in a modern format. It is angelic warfare happening in a modern format. Go ahead.
Yeah, so
it's fiction.
Life's no bed of roses. We all know we know we're gonna struggle. We know things are gonna happen. It comes in waves. It has for me. I've had some really dark days in my past, but those dark days brought me to trusting in an all-powerful God who I know has me no matter what it looks like to me. And Satan doesn't have to get me worshiping him. He just needs to get me distracted. So I think it's real important because they're catching these kids in elementary school now. And if any of us can remember back to what it was like from elementary all the way through high school, it's a weird time. It's just a weird time. You're growing up, things are changing, you're trying to fit in, you don't know, people are picking on you. And you know, I was the smallest kid in my class when I was a sophomore, I think.
Juvenile diabetes probably had something to do with that.
Whatever. So, but you know,
you were a class clown.
But we can't. Well, man's got to make something work for him, right? I spent a lot of time in. I would go down to the principal's office, and she'd be like, "What now, Troy?" And I'd tell her, you know, and she'd go, "Well, help me with these files." You know, but my whole point is that we were going to get into talking about how when they started grading with purple colors, you know,
the purple pen,
you know, and
we're not going to do that tonight. Though.
We're not going to do it tonight, but one of the points that I'd like to leave, if I may, because I don't know when I'm coming back, because this is your deal, not mine. But dealing with problems is what makes people strong. It's the old butterfly and caterpillar thing.
And if you don't know that story, very quickly, let me tell you, a lady saw a caterpillar, saw that it was a butterfly inside, and it was struggling to get out of the cocoon, struggling. And so she went and got scissors and cut the cocoon just enough so that the butterfly could come out. But when it did, its wings weren't developed and it died. And the whole point was the struggle of the butterfly working its way out of the cocoon strengthens the wings to turn it into a beautiful butterfly.
Right. So when I was getting picked on, you know, and that, we're not even getting into the family and what they're doing with the family, but you know, my father was like, "Well, we can fix that," and he threw me in a karate class, and in a very short period of time. But that was something to achieve. Nowadays, they're like, "You go sit over here and be safe. You just go sit over there and be safe." And then they grow up into this world, and they have no tools. They have no resources.
Somebody cut their cocoon.
So anyway.
So we're going to wrap it up. So Troy, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome, honey. I'll join you at dinner here in a little while.
All right. Yes, my stomach's starting to growl. Guys, thanks so much for watching. This is Christy's Corner. I'm Christy Smith, my husband Troy. Culture, Christianity, conservatism, and common sense. We didn't leave with much solution tonight except what Troy was alluding to, and that is no matter what's going on in this world, we strongly suggest reading the Bible, and especially with a commentary that kind of explains it, because Troy and I both believe with all our hearts that Jesus is the only way to heaven, and that if you have that hope, if you know that for all eternity you're going to be in the mansion, in that amazing place in the sky, it's going to make you want to live a better life here.
I will say this, by the way.
At least it does us.
I didn't really commit because you can like believe in God, but the devil believes in God.
Yeah, the devil does.
He's very well aware of that, and he knows how this is going to work out. But do you believe him and the struggles in my life?
You can believe in God, but do you believe God?
Right.
Mhm.
So the struggle, and I'm just speaking for me, but I could easily speak for a lot of people because I share my experience to give people hope, and that's what we're talking about doing. Sitting down and discussing things, trying to meet somebody where they're at.
Well, and I'm hoping too to start dropping links for volunteer situations, scenarios where folks really can make a difference.
I have a friend that just, he said, I can't take it anymore. He in
Ran
his
for office.
area, he ran in.
And he won.
He just became a city councilman.
Yep. There's a beginning. All right, so we're going to wrap it now, guys. Have a wonderful evening. Remember that learning to learn is in itself the greatest reward.
My point being, if you're not aware, then you aren't going to know. And it's going to creep in and it's going to be over with. So we've got to start at least looking at, that's what we're talking about. Because the more you're aware of it, the more you actually recognize it. So
awareness being part of the key. All right, guys, I'm going to try and do this. Let's see if I can turn this off now. End stream. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Thanks for showing up.
Bye, folks. Thanks, Kristen.